Beauvais.
Okay. Yeah.
Tony Beauvais, but Tony left in April 2000. He left to work in Bristol.
Yes.
And then I was abandoned.
Ricardo, será que a gente não podia ir começando e o pessoal vai se chegando? Porque essa sessão não é transmitida. E aí, o pessoal do apoio, Régia e os outros dois EBP apoio, tá? O pessoal pode colocar as apresentações, tá tudo certinho, né?
Tá bom.
Isso, já está tudo certo. A doutora Andréia me enviou a apresentação dela. Eu só peço, doutora Andréia, que assim que a senhora precisar que eu compartilhe, a senhora me dê um aviso, tá bem? A senhora está no mudo.
Você está no mudo.
Ainda está no mudo, não consigo ouvir.
Desliga o...
Tem que ligar o microfone, senhora
Andréia. Liga o microfone, por favor.
Eu disse que doutora Andréia não está aqui. Aqui está a Andréia.
É
muita terapia para ser Andréia, minha filha.
Sandra,
Andréia na próxima vida.
Claudia maybe is understanding something we are speaking over here because she speaks Spanish.
Claudia,
but do you speak Spanish, Sandra?
No.
Yeah.
No, I can make out a couple of words, but mostly when it's written, not when it's spoken. Yeah.
This morning, sim, ok. Vamos começar.
Eu só entender uma coisa. A gente está com plateia, com audiência?
Eu vou entrar lá na da audiência daqui a pouco. Fica tranquila, tá?
Não, só para saber que de repente eu estou falando coisas aqui que eu aproveitando para falar sobre os cadernos e nem precisava, sei lá, já diminuiu, entendeu?
Fica tranquila, eu vou entrar lá na audiência. And I hope it's a great panel. Thanks again for accept our invitation and good luck.
Okay, thank you.
Obrigada, Ana.
Thank you. So let's start.
Obrigado. That's about the only Portuguese word I know.
Yes, you're welcome. Ciao,
this is very helpful. The words all learn is obrigado and por favor. Please and thank you. Or gracias and how do you say please in Spanish, Claudia? Por favor.
Por favor.
Por favor.
Okay, thank you very much for the accepting our invitation. We have our panel to speak with three very important scholars from the public administration scenario. We have Professor Andrea Leite Rodrigues. She is professor from the University of São Paulo and the editor of the Cadernos de Gestão Pública e Cidadania, Public Management and Citizenship Journal in Brazil, which is from Fundação Getúlio Vargas. And then we're going to have Professor Cláudia Avejaneda. She's professor of the O'Neill School of Public Environment Affairs at Indiana University in Bloomington. And she is the editor of the Local Government Studies Journal. And the third person who's going to speak is Professor Sandra Vantill. She's professor of public management at Erasmus University Rotterdam and Radboud University. Nijmegen, I don't know how to pronounce this word, but I guess it is okay, also in the Netherlands. And she's the editor of the International Journal Public Sector Management.
Desculpa, professor, o senhor já começou?
Uhum.
Perdão, é porque na verdade eu teria que abrir a sala, tá bem? Só, desculpe, eu não entendi se eu já havia começado.
Então vamos lá, começa.
Eu vou abrir a sala, tá bem? Se ouvir a gravação e aí pode começar a falar novamente.
Sorry, guys, the room wasn't open. I'm going to say it all over again, but now I'm going to make you do better.
We were the only participants. I was already wondering about that.
You were training. You're making better.
Recording in progress.
Repeating.
Yeah, now I can do. Thank you for coming to join our presentation about publishing in public administration journals. We have three very important scholars from several universities around the world. We have Professor Andrea Leite Rodrigues. She is professor at University of São Paulo and the editor of the journal Public Management and Citizenship, Fundação Getúlio Vargas. after Professor Andrea, we're going to have Professor Cláudia Avejaneda. She is professor in the O'Neill School of Public and Environment Affairs at Indiana University in Bloomington. And she is the editor of the Local Government Studies. And our third invitee is Professor Sandra Vantill. She is professor of public management at Erasmus University Rotterdam and Radboud University at Nijmegen, both at the Netherlands. And she is the editor of the International Journal of Public Sector Management. We're going to have around 50 minutes each presentation. And after this time, we're going to have a space for discussions. Andrea, you can go first, please.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Régia? Vamos lá, Régia. Eu não vou ver ninguém?
They can see us, but we cannot.
Yes. Okay. Okay, I can see you. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. So, thank you all. Wait. Régia, quando for eu falo, tá bom? Muito obrigada. Okay, good afternoon, everybody. I want to thank you for all this warm audience, where I have so many scholars, so many friends, so many brothers and sisters that work for the development of not only our field, but science in Brazil these days, these awful days we are facing here. So thank you in advance for being here. First of all, I thank you all having me today, especially Professor Ana Cláudia Parranha and Professor Ricardo Gomes. Thank you for the invitation. It's a pleasure and honor. I also welcome Professors Cláudia Avejaneda, Sandra Vantill for giving us the opportunity to learning more about our field in other countries, in your work. It's a privilege. Thank you for being here, for giving us your time, and your speech will be very helpful and very pertinent for all of us. Well, although Ricardo has already presented me briefly, and here you can see I'm an associate professor at University of São Paulo. Let me just remark a few things about Ricardo has already presented, and then I will briefly propose you the main goal of this presentation, the way I face it, the opportunity to talk to you about Cadernos de Gestão Pública e Cidadania. Back in 2018, I received Cadernos de Gestão Pública e Cidadania from one of our dearest friends, Mário Aquino Alves, a very important and well-known scholar in our field. And by that time, as you can see, my background is not from public administration or public policies. The two main fields that compose the main part of the contributors for Cadernos de Gestão Pública e Cidadania. I don't know if it's the same abroad, but here, the main part of the articles come from these two fields, public management and public policy. Concerning that public policies is related to political science, okay? So back in 2018, I invite you to know more which were the challenges I faced and how do I see it now. So, Régia, por favor. Well, Cadernos de Gestão Pública e Cidadania was born in 1996 as a small journal just for undergraduate students. A journal for my first paper with my advisor, my first exercise in publishing. But the quantity of papers, the importance, the field as a whole rise a lot. And then now we face all the challenges that all the journals face. Less days for desk review, less days between submission and publication, better articles, more impact, internationalization. So I think we indicators, we face the same problems. But since we face all of the journals, scientific journals face the same problems, the big question, the more important questions for me, as I see it now, it's who are we? And what's the point in having another journal in our field? Which field? What are the characteristics of our field? And as I must explain, maybe Professor Vantill and that know us less, I think Professor Avellaneda know Brazil more because she was before with us, but I can at least 3 more important and distinguished journals in Brazil. RAP or AP, Revista de Administração Pública, which is a Fundação Getúlio Vargas Journal 2, very high ranked, very distinguished. Organização e Sociedade, Society and Organization, one of our oldest journals from Bahia. And also a PGS, Administração Pública em Gestão Social, which I consider one of our more similar conditions. But what I want to take your attention is that, do we need one more journal? Do we have this much good papers? What's the point in have one more? Or as a community, should we improve or should we contribute to other journals in the same field to be stronger? So I decided to answer these questions with a lot of reasoning, of course, but also I talked a lot to the main professors, scholars, researchers, people in our field to understand not only what we must do, but for what, and who are we, who we want to be, and what's the point for our journal? What are the characteristics of our field? How can we contribute as a journal, as a Brazilian journal, to improve science here? So that's the question that will guide my presentation and guide my work as editor-in-chief. Regia, por favor. So here you can see some of the headlines here, as I've already told you. Journal published by Fundação Getúlio Vargas since 1996, a small journal to publish graduate work in the area, aimed to managers, professors, research, people interested in themes related to Brazilian public sector and related areas. In the first day I became editor-in-chief, I decided, okay, we are a journal oriented to public sector, but we are not exclusive to researchers and authors that study public administration or study public policy. Public administration and public policy are everywhere, are in no sort of knowledge areas, in healthcare, health management, tourism, agriculture, environment, management, law, no matter where, all areas of knowledge are related to public sector. The main point for you to send Caderno de Gestão Pública e Cidadania, a paper, does it contribute to understand Brazilian public sector? Does it give us better conditions to understand our characteristics, our singularities, the challenges we face as the public sector? And we must say that public sector alone, an expression, public sector, it doesn't mean too much, because now you have public with private, with non-profits, and you have mixed governance. So we must discuss public in a broad range of options, not only as it's related to a court, or it's related to a company, a hospital, a public hospital. This is not, we want to be broad in terms of what we understand by public and what we consider important. The objective is to disseminate academic works of excellence about managed and public policy, and to contribute to the theorizing about the Brazilian public sector as a protagonist, as well as to its actions in partnership with other sectors in the economy. I want to take your attention when we say about excellence. What do we know about the quality of our authors, the way they learn how to do a good theoretical framework, the way they learn how to do a good methodological framework? Does Cadernos de Gestão Pública e Cidadania help them to improve this effort? Does Cadernos de Gestão Pública e Cidadania contribute to have a better field in terms of science? I think here we start to think where we are and why we can contribute, not only make a difference, because I don't think we are competitors. I think we must look at the conditions of graduate students in Brazil, graduate programs, the difficulties we have. We are short in resources. We are a continental country, so different theoretical and methodological and ideological approaches. So how can we embrace all this diversity and contribute to be a journal that shows this diversity? Instead of narrow it, we must contribute to understand the way we are trying to produce scientific studies in Brazil. Obrigada, Régia, pode trocar. Professor Vantill, are you following me? Oh, my English is so pitiful. Can you understand me?
Yes, I can.
Okay. Thank you, you're very kind. Ricardo, se estiver horroroso, você me avisa, tá? Well, here you can see, since we must understand that we are a continental country with few institutions that really can support scientific development. So here, in the chart, we can see a huge effort I start back in 2010 to diversify our governance in terms of the origin of people that came to help me to work for these challenges. So you can see we try to not only, I am a professor in São Paulo University, and I also had my background in Fundação Getúlio Vargas, but it's not enough. We need to have people from all of the country to show us what are they doing, what kind of science, what challenges do they face when they have methodological courses there in Amazonia, in the East, in the West, in the different programs that work with local development, work with social economy, with cooperative governance and social management. So I try, since the beginning of my work as editor-in-chief, I try to start to look for the big picture and not to narrow it just to the most important or most famous, or I don't know, the most something institutions in our country. Okay, everybody matters, since we must talk to this field, and this field is diverse, and we are in a country with this big. Eja? So the decisions I made, first of all, Caderno de Gestão Pública e Cidadania is oriented to Brazilian production. We are oriented to the authors that came from the graduate programs here. So you do not have foreign authors. Evidently, we have a lot of foreign authors. We have articles in English, we have articles in Spanish, but we are oriented to a better production in terms of methodology, in terms of theoretical approaches, in terms of the difficulties we must face, graduate students in a country like Brazil. So we call public field. Public field, it means not only public administration and public policy, but we want to talk about all the areas that can contribute us to understand this. There are many areas of knowledge involved: culture, biology, environment, law, healthcare, and etc. Public administration, public policy are everywhere. And there are other journals that focus in the same area. And I do not consider us competitors. I consider we are together improving the conditions of developing our science. Veja. We are guided and oriented people. I changed the governance. I will change again. We have initiatives regarding the editorial team, the editorial committee, the scientific editorial board, and I must thank all people that really helped me to be an editor-in-chief. To be in our governance, it's hands-on. No matter if you are a full professor with a long background, you are very important in our history, you're the founding father, founding mother, founding fathers, and founding mothers. Are they in our governance? They must work. They must help us to improve, better reviews, better authors, better initiatives for us to involve all these fields. Regia? We are oriented to good practice. In this involve not only problems, ethics, but what's a good author? What's a good paper? What's a good review? You can be a very well-known author, a very well-known researcher, but you are not a good reviewer. So thank you very much. There will be no next time. Thank you. Regia? Network. I started hard work to be closer to our most important forums. AMPAD, our organization in post-graduation, EGS, Rede de Pesquisadores em Gestão Social, EBAP, e GIGAP, that's the Ibero-American Forum, that we have a special issue last year. Our last issue was dedicated to GIGAP papers. Regia? And what do we propose? What are we facing now that we are bigger, we have more articles, more authors, more forums, more special issues, oriented to improve Brazilian scientific production? That's what I care most. Work with scientific forums or special issues. I will show you. We had special issues that we have a very good audience, many papers, many good papers, and we have lives, and we invited people to talk about. This is for our development as a scientific community, and fast tracks with scientific Brazilian events. Okay? Terminando, Ricardo. Pode ir, Regia, por favor. Now the publishing, we now work in continuous flow, trimestral editions, and it has been publishing forums with emerging themes in the public sector. Here you can see some of them. Next one will be next January, where we will have a special issue coordinated by very important researchers, and we'll talk about pandemia and políticas públicas and public policy. Okay, Regia? Here you can see an initiative in communication, and one of our special issues. We have the special issues, the articles, and then we have a live in the web that you can talk to the authors, to the editors, and we have more proximity with our community. Regia? And here you can see some of our numbers. They are not really in time because next week we will have a new round of preparation. Thank you. And next. In our challenges, increase quality of local production, as I already have said. Increases the commitment from local community. This is the harder one. I must admit that some of my colleagues distinguish better foreign journals than us. I understand why they do that. But I think as Brazilians, as they are working here, they must give us attention too, not to me, but local journals deserve their attention because it's there where we will have more authors, more quality authors. One of the things that concerns me too, I don't want to be the B plan. Oh, I have a good paper. It's not good enough, so I will send to Cadernos de Gestão Pública e Cidadania. Since it's not good enough, I will send it to them. I work hands and teeth to not be that. We work hard to be a journal that will accept high quality papers from local authors. That's what we want to be. I understand we have very competitive indicators to attend. It's true, but we must have goals for developing local community too. And the challenge to open science. For instance, last week we talked about we will be soon required to open the reviewers. Since we published the paper, will be required to show the reviews. It's not so easy for us. We are a small community and we have a tradition of relations that I don't think it will be very easy to do so. But we can't be in the Middle Ages. We must face it, the challenges that open science will give us, and that we are preparing to do that. Regia? And here you can see, vou terminar.
Okay,
and here you can see our new layout. It will change next January. Here's our new layout. All the journals of Fundação Getúlio Vargas will change their layout. And here's our new layout. Palmeirenses will be glad. And, Regia, thank you very much. I will be glad to answer your questions, and I will be available for all the comments and suggestions you may give me. Thank you very much to give me the opportunity to show our work. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrea. Thank you very much. Professor Avellaneda, would you please?
Yes, thank you very much. If it is possible, I would like to share my screen. Okay, now it seems that I have access. Excellent. Can you see my screen?
Yes, yes, we can.
Yes.
Excellent. Let me see. Okay. Okay. So thank you, Ricardo, very much for the invitation, and I'm very happy to be just next to these wonderful colleagues. Thank you very much. And my name is Claudia Avellaneda. I am originally from Colombia, Latin America, so very close to Brazilians. Actually, in the last 10 years, thanks to Ricardo, and I have been able to cultivate such a wonderful friendship with many Brazilians. Indeed, so far I have hosted more than 38 Brazilians here in Indiana University. So I hope to continue hosting many of you, and please just tell me and I will be more than happy to help you with the process. So I am an associate professor and my research area is mainly on local governments and subnational governments in general in developing countries, particularly in Latin America. And since 2 years ago, I am one of the editors of local government studies. So I want to provide you some introduction or general ideas about local government studies, but mainly my discussion is going to be about how to provide you some feedback, how to succeed in a submission process. So local government studies is an European journal. Actually, I have been the first non-European editor of the journal. So all the editors have been from Europe. So I have been the first and US and editor. I have dual citizenship, American and Colombian. So this local government studies is managed mainly by the Institute for Local Government Studies in the University of Birmingham. So it has 5 editors. So along with me, we have 4 more editors, and we have also an assistant editor, and we have also a chair of editors in addition to these 5. So this is cool because actually we can distribute the review process about the 5 of us. So the way that we distribute the process is as the journal arrives, we have keywords for each one of us based on our research area. So the assistant editor, she's the one who decides who is going to review a particular article. So if the article is about mayoral quality or about mayoral performance or about local leaders, that article more likely will come to me because I am the one who does that type of research. But if the article has to do with contracting out, with privatization, with hybrid governance systems, that article probably will go to one of my colleagues that is more specialized in that. We have also 37 members at the editorial board. We have been conscious about diversifying the editorial board in terms of geographic, where are the areas that they are representing, Before, most of them were only from Europe, and now we are trying to diversify that. In fact, in the last month, we just appointed a new editor because one of the editors and just decided to step down. And so now we appointed one Chinese editor among us. She's right now actually working here in a university in the United States, but she's originally from China. Why? Because we have seen an increase in the number of articles submitted from China. So we felt that we really needed someone that knew very well the context of China. We also are trying to diversify the editorial board based on the diversity. We know right now how important it is to have people from diverse backgrounds. It promotes more legitimacy, it promotes also more advocacy for the different topics, different things, and also it provides more diversity and more learning opportunities for all of us. And also we're trying to diversify in terms of research areas. You know that across time, had the topics arrive. For example, now one of the biggest topics that we are seeing in the trend of submission of articles is about how government have responded to COVID-19 crisis, how government responds to a crisis, external events, to hurricanes, to kind of things. So we needed to diversify our editorial board in order to have contributions or participants from all these research topics and these new research ideas that have emerged. Another research topic, for example, that we have seen a lot of increase is about immigration and the impact of immigration and government. So we have to involve someone that really know more about these issues. What about in terms of readership? So as an editor, we want the journal to be read for with as many people as possible and from many countries as possible. So this is our goal. Of course, this is an European journal, so most of the readership comes from Europe. But now we see that actually we have many readers from the United States, from Netherlands, from Australia, from Germany, and from China. But we would love to have more readers from Latin America, especially from Brazil. But in order to see that, we need to submit more articles from Brazil. Because the more articles you submit from Brazil, more people will care about articles that have been published about Brazil, comparative articles that include Brazil and other countries in the regions. So I strongly encourage you to submit articles that involve Brazil or any other countries in Latin America, because we are eager to diversify the geographic submissions in our journal. In addition to that, I want to show you the impact factor and the ranking of our journal. This is available everywhere. You can just go and Google what is the impact factor for all the journals. Of course, our journal is within the public administration a group of journals. So we have seen that actually our impact factor has increased across time. In 2013, it was 0.620. In 2019, it went to 1.9. So we are boosting that. And we hope that with all the reading that we are going to do about articles, we are going to improve it much better. And we plan to improve also our ranking among the 48 public administration articles that are out there. So, but this is only with your help, and that also asking all your institutions to be members or to pay for a membership to have access to the journal. That is something that can be easily done. You just go to the library of your respective institution and ask them whether they can become members of local government studies for you to have access online about the journal. So please feel free to contact me if you want to learn how to actually your institution to become a member and to have access to all these articles. Submission trends. This is something that probably you would like to learn, because we want to send our articles to places that we see that they have more opportunities to publish our articles. As in any other journal, that the submission trends is increasing every year. Believe it or not, that during COVID-19, because most of us probably had more time, and likely other colleagues who didn't have time because they had kids and they needed to have more responsibilities, we saw an increased number of submissions last year. It was almost like a 40% increase in the number of submissions last year. We saw a lot of increase in geographic submissions from China, from the United States, from Europe, from Korea, and from Indonesia. Again, very few from Latin America. So please take advantage of that and submit more from Latin America. The time from submission to decision is improved. Before 3 years ago, it was taking longer, and now our goal is to have a decision before the 3 months. And either if the decision is to reject the article or the decision is to revise and resubmit the article. So that is the target that now we have. Of course, it might vary time to time, but this is our goal, in 3 months to have a decision and the article. What is the type of publications that we do? So this is the type of content that we publish in year 2019, 2021. So we publish about 112 articles. We publish 21 weekly reviews. We publish 4 editorials, and we publish 2 introductions. The editorials and the introductions most of the time are related with the special issues. We usually publish 2 or 3 special issues every year. Now already we have a special issues request for the future 2 years. So we are trying right now to reduce the number of special issues. And even if we are asked to consider a special issue, there are several guidelines for people to do so. So if you go to the journal's website, you will find what are the guidelines to submit the special issues. Now, what are the strategies to succeed in the submission process? Because this is probably, I think, that some of the people in the audience would like to learn about. First of all, the article needs to have a theoretical contribution. No longer probably we are expecting just simple case studies. It could be a case study and it could be a qualitative case study, but that piece needs to have a theoretical contribution. What is the new theory that you are developing? What is the new theory that you are proposing and that you are offering that can be tested, and how likely it is to be tested in the future? We are also looking for articles that are empirically sounded. So actually, what is the type of methods? Does it use different methods in order to test the argument that they are suggesting? And also we are looking for articles that have very good quality of data. Some people say, well, in Latin America, it's difficult to obtain data. Actually, right now, we see a lot of improvement across countries in Latin America in having excellent, actually, administrative data. Data that is easily available online and that anyone else can have access to and can replicate the results. So that is a wonderful opportunity for us to submit more articles based on the good quality of data that we have. We want to have also articles that provide a lot of generalizability of results. Even if you are using or testing a model in a particular country, we would like to see how generalizable are the results out of your test. Can those results easily replicated in non-authoritarian countries, in authoritarian countries, in non-democratic countries, in quasi-democratic countries, in countries with different political regime systems, in federal countries, in unitary governments? So we like those articles to discuss the generalizability of results, because what we want is readers to say, oh, wow, this is an interesting topic. I probably should replicate this in my setting, in any other settings, to see if actually the results hold. Also, we want to see more geographic diversity. So as other journals in public administrations, like JPAR, like Public Administration Review, like Public Management Review, like a Public Administration, we want readings to have a variety of geographic submissions. So we want to have more articles from Africa, from Latin America. So please, I strongly encourage you to submit articles to local government studies. And also we want articles we have with very broad perspective, not too narrow research questions, and to have a more broad perspective, even if it is within a particular policy area, perspective that actually can be testable across other policy areas. So, and that needs to be actually highlighted in the article to say, I'm testing this argument in the education policy area. But however, we believe that this argument can be tested in health policy, energy policy, labor policy, economic policy, urban policy, planning policy, any other policy that you can think of. And also consider asking for open access. So the cost for having open access, once the article has been accepted, It varies across journals, but actually something that this is actually doable. So I strongly recommend you to assign some money, and once your article has been accepted, to allow for open access, you are going to see that actually the number of citations will boost if you have open access to your journal, to your article. And so I strongly recommend that. Actually, I had not considered that. And now I'm using my research account actually to start paying for open access of the articles that I'm going to start publishing now on, because I have seen how that impact actually the citation record. And that is what we want to see here, not just our piece to be published, but also to be highly cited, because that shows the quality of your research and that other people actually care about it. So these are the few comments that I had about it, and please don't hesitate to reach out to me to ask questions. Even if you want to send me the article prior to submit it to local government studies, feel free to send me an email to say, do you think that this is a topic that the local government studies will be interested in publishing? I will be more than happy to give you just an idea or to suggest you another outlet if that is the case. But just start submitting to local government studies. Articles from Latin America are quite welcome, and I guarantee you that those will have very chances to be published as long as they have all these contributions that I asked you to tell you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, my dear friend. It's always a pleasure to talk with you, to learn with you how to, and to help me to motivate people to submit papers to the journals. Thank you. Professor Sandra.
Yes, thank you very much. Yes, I will start sharing my screen as well. Thank you very much for the invitation to attend this seminar. I'm the odd one out, I think, as far as Brazilian contacts go, because I don't have that many contacts yet, but maybe tonight, well, for me it's tonight, for you it's the afternoon, will render some results. The International Journal of Public Sector Management, or IJPSM, is a journal that has been in existence for 34 years now. And it's a journal published by Emerald. It's an international journal. And for me, that was one of the interesting things about the journal when I was asked to become the editor-in-chief in 2015, which is now almost 7 years ago. I would like to tell you a little bit about the scope of the journal, the editorial team, some facts and figures, special issues, and something about author guidelines and what to do if you want to submit an article to our journal. And of course, I'm very happy to entertain any questions that you might have. So the scope of the journal, like the title of the journal states, it's an international journal. So we welcome articles from all over the world, and I'll show you a little bit about where our authors come from later on. And it's about public sector management, which means that we cover actually the full range of public management research. So we have a very large variety of topics, from public finance, performance management, human resources, strategy, leadership, integrity, e-government, procurement, you name it, we have it, from a range of countries all over the globe. And what we particularly like is if people offer empirical research, and if possible comparatively, or at least paying attention to what's interesting about the case or the findings that people offer. We are, of course, like the other journals, blind peer reviewed to make sure that the quality of the publications is good. And I was very intrigued by what Andrea said about open access, or about open science, and about making available who the reviewers are and what they've said. This is a debate that we are having as well. We haven't decided to do that yet. So the editorial team, besides myself, there is an editorial assistant who is sort of my right-hand man, does a lot of the administrative parts of the work. And we have 2 associate editors, Dr. Diana Malatesta. She is a professor at Indiana in the United States, and Robert Cameron, Professor Robert Cameron, and he's a professor at Cape Town, South Africa. In the past, we have had an associate editor from Brazil, Dr. Cristina Andrews. I probably pronounce it in the wrong way, but she's from the University of Sao Paulo. But she eventually quit, and then Robert Cameron became the new associate editor. So this is one of the things for me to ensure that we have this international focus, getting associate editors from different countries, similar to what Claudia was telling about local government studies, with having editors from different parts of the world with different specialities, of course, as well. And there are some other details. If you want to contact us, this is the address that we use. And similarly, in the editorial advisory board, we have a number of people from various different continents, but I must admit that our diversity is not optimal yet. So we are going to try and do a new round. But as you can see, Ricardo Gomez is one of the members of our editorial advisory board, hence, you know, why I was invited to talk about the journal. But here you can see that we have a lot of different people from different parts of the world with different specialities in our advisory board. So on to some facts and figures. The journal publishes 7 issues per year with 6 articles per issue, which means we publish 42 articles per year, but we get a lot more submissions. We get between 250 and 300 submissions per year. We have a relatively high desk reject rate of 80%, which is quite common actually among international journals. So nothing to be afraid of, but it's just to be sort of open about how it works. Our final acceptance rate after the review process is in total 11%. And the journal is doing very well. In the past 5 to 7 years, we've gone really up in citation scores. We've been included in a couple of databases and international rankings, not yet in the famous ISI Web of Science ranking, but we're very close to that, as we are included in the database of the ISI Web of Science already. The journal and the publisher are signatories of the top guidelines and DORA, which means that we subscribe all kinds of principles regarding being open about methods that you use, trying to also publish data sets, well, you know, basically all the good things that are going on at the moment. As far as open access goes, there are some possibility to get vouchers, which means that you won't have to pay the fees for open access publications, but Emerald could be doing better in this respect. And I've been trying to persuade my publisher to do better and to be more generous with these vouchers, but they are quite limited. There is a special webpage on the Emerald website where you can find out whether your country and your institution actually qualify for these vouchers, which makes it easier to publish open access. I'm a big fan of open access publications, but I think that Emerald could be doing a little bit better. One of the other things that improved over the past 5 to 7 years is that we have a relatively quick turnaround, which means that if you submit a paper, you get a first decision very quickly. And then we go into the review process if your article is taken into review. However, and I'm curious to know whether Andrea and Claudia suffer from the same problem, it's very difficult nowadays to find reviewers and also to get the reviewers to do the work on time. Everybody's very busy, and it's sort of becoming an epidemic on its own. Of finding these reviewers, and we all have to do this. This is part of academic citizenship, but it's getting more and more difficult, and so we have to develop all kinds of new strategies. And I don't know whether making public who the reviewers are is going to help or going to actually make the problem worse, but we'll have to wait and see how that goes. regarding facts and figures, I promised you to show you where sort of the publication or where the articles that are being submitted to IJPSM come from. And this is sort of the list. You can see an enormous amount of different countries that authors come from. A lot of Asian countries, Middle Eastern countries, of course, European countries. Not so much the Latin American countries, although we do on occasion get a couple of manuscripts from Brazil, for example, but not that many yet. So that could be improved. So maybe after tonight, that will be improved. Some tips for authors. One of the things that I notice is that not everybody adheres to the author guidelines, which is, you know, a very administrative thing. I understand, but the thing is that we have to reject you if you don't adhere to the author guidelines. So, you know, it's relatively easy. Just check it, make sure that you use the guidelines as we prescribe them. One of the things is our journal has a particular way of using the abstract in a slightly different way than most other journals do. So this is a very simple thing, but it's sometimes overlooked. Of course, you have to find out whether the article that you have written fits with the scope and the aims of the journal. Like Claudia, you can always send a message and ask whether, you know, would it fit, yes or no? Would it have any kind of chance of being taken into review? You get an answer again relatively quickly. And if it's positive, you can submit it through the online system. For non-native speakers or authors, it's very important that the manuscript is in proper English. So if you have any questions or doubts about your use and command of the language, you should have your manuscript edited by a professional editor before you submit it. I understand there are costs involved, etc. But a lot of reviewers actually will immediately say reject if they cannot understand your article because of the problems with language. So in order to prevent that, you have to have it edited by a professional editor before you submit it. Then regarding content, I can only sort of echo what Claudia already said. So the theoretical question that you pose, the theoretical relevance of your article, that is paramount. So make sure that you explain what the theoretical relevance is, what your research question is, and try to come up with that already relatively early on in the article. Then use the international literature, show how your case or your topic is related to the international literature, even if you're writing about a local case. We don't reject articles based on the fact that they write about a case study, but we do reject when you don't make clear why this particular case is of academic interest and would be of interest to people in other countries. And you can do that by showing the linkages that there are to the international literature on your topic. The methodological account, of course, is very important. And one of the things we've noticed recently is that the number of systematic literature reviews is increasing, which is a trend that I encourage because I think that that can help to systemize our knowledge. However, it doesn't fly anymore to just make sort of a summary of a number of articles and then give your own sort of review of that. There are protocols out there for systematic literature reviews, so please use those, and that way you can, you know, increase the chances of getting accepted. And then finally, of course, not only mention the theoretical relevance at the beginning, but also come back to it in the discussion to discuss, you know, what would be the implications of your findings for theory and for future research. You can also describe a couple of points for impact on practice. So what would practitioners learn from your manuscript? But the theoretical implications are the most important ones for the journal as such. like all the other journals, we have a number of special issues going on at the moment. I was just going to show this by way of example. If you have an idea for a special issue, you're always welcome to contact me and let me know that, I would like to do a special issue on this or that. We have certain procedures in place and so on. There is an explanation on how to do this, so you can always ask. These are the topics for which we have outstanding calls for papers at the moment. So on public sector management education, for example, multi-ethnic societies and the challenges for public sector management thereof, payment for performance, actually by one of your Brazilian colleagues, Fabiana Sadi, and a number of other colleagues. And then the latest addition to our list is on social enterprises, which I think is quite an interesting topic. These are the calls for papers that are outstanding at the moment. We publish on average 2 special issues per year out of the 7 issues that we have. So, to conclude, if you want to submit a manuscript, please check the website, but you can also contact our editorial assistant through the general email address. Make sure to check these author guidelines and the scope and so on to improve your chances of being taken into review. Proposals for special issues are welcome, and if you have any questions, just let us know or ask them now, whichever you prefer.
Thank you, Sandra. Thank you very much for your presentation. The three of you provided very interesting and very important information about whoever went to publish abroad and to publish in your journals. As my friend can see, I'm a very democratic person, and I only invited the women for our panel. So the session's open for questions. Let's see what questions we do have. I will start with one question myself. I know the 3 of you have been trying to publish in your journals. With what are the challenges you expect when the so-called new normal get back, when people start working in person? Do you think that the number of papers that will improve or will decrease? How do you expect for that? And what are you thinking about in terms of strategies to deal with this new normal? In Brazil, we're still working online, as you see in our conference, but some places that are starting to get back to normal. What are your thoughts about that?
I can answer that if you like, or Claudia, would you like to start first?
Okay, I can say something. And Ricardo, and I think that reduction in the number of submissions might decrease, but not too much. Believe it or not, the new generation of academics are quite productive. So the number of submissions, I don't see that this is going to decrease. What might change is the type of subjects or topics that might be submitted to the journal. Because of COVID-19 crisis, now is about organizational capacity. What are the challenges the government has to face all the news crisis? So these are probably the new topics that we are gonna see in the journals. But in other areas, not, because actually the journal always has worked online, because the editors usually are from different areas and that we never get it together. Our meetings are usually have been online. So in terms of administrative issues or challenges, I don't think so. I will see just in terms of the locations, the geographic submissions, and also the topics that we are gonna see. But my colleagues might have a different opinion.
No, I would actually completely agree. And I think that indeed for the topics, it doesn't really matter, and also not for the number of submissions. But I did see during the COVID crisis, when, sort of the whole world was in lockdown, there were people who were really becoming very productive because they were working at home and they were bothered less with day-to-day things, so to speak. And there were people, particularly, for example, younger people with young children who had a much harder time. So I think that there are differences between, for example, age groups that might rebalance again when we go back to the new normal. But overall, I would agree with Claudia that it would not really lead to sort of enormous increase or decrease of the number of manuscripts.
Andrea, do you want to add something?
Yes. Well, I expect that we will, in Caderno de Gestão Pública e Cidadania, we will continue increasing the numbers of submissions. We more than double the submissions during the pandemic. And also, next year, we will have elections. So I expect very hot papers talking about the very severe situations we must face in Brazil. So I expect I will have more quantity, diversity, and ideological fightings for publishing next year. And I'm prepared. Please send your paper.
And I'm a bit of loss over here because I don't know if the people from the audience. Okay. I guess we have some questions coming out over here. Marco Antonio Catiusa, I guess Claudia know him. I guess he was stayed some time with you in Indiana. Can you see his question, Claudia? In the chat box.
Following Ricardo's questions, what type of inequalities the COVID-19 pandemic can cause? More papers from the rich countries and gender inequality and gender inequality. So I guess that is the question, that whether we are going to see more papers from rich countries or from the gender inequality. Actually, that has been an issue that has a topic that has seen a lot of increase about gender inequality. And probably we will see more articles about that because COVID-19 actually has reinforced the existing inequalities and has uncovered many other inequalities that before probably we were ignoring. Another topic that probably is going to gain a lot of relevance is related to environmental issues, environmental policy, environmental challenges, and how the government can strategize in order to achieve now the goals that they are setting up, especially now with the COP26 conference of world leaders.
Ricardo, you're on mute.
Yeah, because my alarm was raising over here. Do you want to add something to that issue?
Well, I think that I would agree with Claudia again that COVID-19 has increased the inequalities that are already there. On the other hand, one of the things I noticed is that because of the fact that we've all been forced to work from home, I think that international contacts have become much easier. So it might also lead to more interaction and to more cooperation. I haven't done any research into it, so I don't have any numbers. But for example, me being at the Brazilian conference now, and I've given lectures in Hong Kong and in Indonesia, for example, in the past month. And it's so much easier now to start these contacts and to interact and to have meetings and to do joint research. So it might also be an opportunity, but maybe that's more of an idealist viewpoint. But anyway, I think that is something to consider.
Andrea?
I don't see any point to add, but I think gender inequality, although we have a huge production quantity, quality. We are still behind. We have much more issues, problems, everyday life, gender inequality issues that must be treated. Science must give more attention to impact in terms of what we produce, what we write, and what does this make for life, for people, for society. So I think we still have a challenge in terms of the papers and the impact. But I fully agree with Claudia.
I think, Ricardo, you mentioned already that it's quite interesting to have 3 female editors in your panel, because most of the panels that I have seen meet the editors consist of only men.
Yeah.
And I remember when I started out as an editor, I actually had a full female team. So all my associate editors were women as well. And that was quite unique, I think, particularly in public administration, which in my experience is still a very, maybe now that the attendees will become angry with me, but it's still, I think, a very male dominated discipline.
But look at how much progress now we can see. That we have 3 editorial female. Yeah, that is great.
So well done, Ricardo.
Yeah.
Thank you. When another question, it's more the operational type of question. You know, I never understood what. Okay, I understood when you have hard copies of the journals, and you to fix the limit of 8,000 words. But now I guess all the journals are on PDFs, on digital copies. What is the reason to limit to 8,000 words? Sometimes it's very difficult to get to 8,000 words. You know, we have a lot to say about stuff and just keep cutting that, in order to fix that. No, do you think that you're going to change?
I think in my case, it's something from the editor. So the editor has a pagination budget. It has to do with costs, simply. And I would agree that if we go fully online, which I would really like to do, then it wouldn't matter anymore. And there are actually already journals out there that don't uphold a word limit anymore, who just say, submit it. I do find that, having a word limit also helps to get more focus into an article. So it's not necessarily a bad thing, because sometimes people can sort of go on and on and on and mention all kinds of things that distract more of the main message. So it's not necessarily a bad thing. I have a word limit of about 8,000 words, I always say. So, I don't go overboard if you're on 8,002 words, something like that. There are journals actually that will immediately reject it then, and I think that's a bit too harsh. But it's not necessarily a bad thing, but you're right. It's probably something from the olden days when we would still all have it published in print, and that will disappear.
Claudia?
And it is a good question. As Sandra says, if it goes online, probably it will change this pattern. However, it's a trade-off. Would you like to have more pages per article, or would you have more possibilities of getting published? Because the shorter the articles, the more articles can be published in one issue. Does it make sense? So in order to give more opportunities to more people, the number of pages per article should be reduced. And also, as Sandra says, we want to publish things that are very concise and concrete. And that's why there is a particular format that needs to be followed. What is the theoretical contribution? What is what existing literature has said about that? And what is what you are adding to the existing literature? How do you plan to test it? And how did you do it? That is all. So it teaches us more to just to be more concise. I know that in different languages, probably we try to express in different ways. In Spanish, we tend to use many words to embellish the content or something, but usually in English, it tends to be more concrete and concise.
Okay. Andrea, okay? Do you want to add?
You can see when you see initiatives to take scientific papers or scientific production to practitioners, many initiatives to more oral presentations, more short papers. So I think it's a matter not only of space, because we do not have this problem anymore, but the point is how long will be your work and how good is the size of an article to be a good for the reader. So when I think about 8,000 words, okay, 8,200, 8,800, no problem. But I think how long will be a scientific paper good for reading it? And more than 18,000, I think you can be more specific and write more articles. I don't see every initiative of making more than one article for your work. It's salami in the wrong as a stigma. It's because this paper is about this. So 8,000 words. It's a good size. And I have another point that I want to develop. So it's another article. So for me, it's a matter of thinking about the reader, thinking about how can we be more interesting for more people to read us. It's not time anymore just to write for the gods. We must write for people, for real people. And science now are having much more initiatives to be in more forums that are for practitioners, for people that are not in the academia and so on. So I think 1,000 words is good. I do not reject because you have, I don't know, 9,000, but you have 12,000 words. Oh, well, calm down. 12,000 words, calm down. So I think it's a matter of thinking about the reader. That's my point of view.
Thank you. I just remember a friend of mine from University of Viçosa, and he's from biology. In his entire career, he published more than 400 papers on his entire career, but the papers only half page each one. So a half page I can publish more than 400.
1 page, 2 pages, yes.
Yes. But I can't see any more question. I want to provoke you with some kind of sensitive questions. We are Brazilian. Most of our scholars publish in Portuguese. I would like to see your opinion about, first, Portuguese references. How do you see this? Sometime I wrote a paper, and the editor asked me to translate the title of the articles and the books because the audience would not understand that the language. And the second one, how do you think about self-citation? Sometimes it's not a good thing to do if you keep self-citing yourself in the entire paper. How are your opinions about that?
These are two interesting questions, Ricardo. And for the first one, it is a norm, and that actually we have to translate the title of any piece if it is a different language. It has to be translated into English. And actually it's for our own benefit, because you will like people from other languages to be able to identify what is the title of this book. Does it make sense? And also if they want to request that book or that chapter of that article through interlibrary loan, they need to know exactly what is that a piece means. So asking for translation of the title into English, that is a very valid thing, and that is actually the norm. That is what is expected. In terms of self-citations, yeah, that is a very sensitive topic. Actually, I submitted one article to a journal where I was asked not to cite myself, even in the first round. I was asked, I had never been asked not to do it, but I was asked not to submit any of the pieces in the first round. But in other journals, actually, there are no limitations in terms of that. So I guess that it's just a matter of each journal. Sandra and Andrea, what do you say?
Yeah. Well, I agree with the translation thing. That's just sort of to make clear to the audience. So if you list the title both in Portuguese and in English, everybody who doesn't know Portuguese can still understand, okay, so this publication was about that particular topic. So that's not the sort of problematic thing. If you include references to publications in another language than English, I don't have any problems with that, just as long as it's not the majority of the paper, because that would make the argument less sort of controllable. So other readers cannot read up on the references that you have used, and they cannot check or try to read more than what you've already been writing about. So a modest number of references to publications in another language is not a problem, but if it's almost all references, then it's becoming problematic. Regarding self-citation, self-citations are allowed also, again, to a modest degree. They will create problems if you lose the anonymity for the double-blind peer review. So if you have so many references to really specific publications building onto your own work, so to previous publications, that would mean that the reviewer will automatically know who the author is, even though we have sort of deleted the name of the author. So what some journals do nowadays is that they ask you to exclude the references from your original manuscript, put them in a little separate list, which is not visible to the reviewer. And then later on, when the article is accepted, you can add them back into the manuscript. And you just sort of say reference to author in the manuscript. So everybody knows, okay, the author is building onto his own work, but for reasons of anonymity, the name has been taken out. So self-citations in themselves are not a problem unless they harm the anonymity. What a bigger problem is, if you're talking about provoking us, not for me, because I detest this practice, but I do know that there are editors out there who will actually ask authors to cite publications written by the editor, or to include more references to the journal, to increase the citation number of the journal, to increase the impact factor. And I think that those are really unethical practices. Like I say, I know a couple of editors who do that, because I'm also an author, of course, so I come across these practices as well. And I think that is a no-go area. Unfortunately, it does happen.
Yeah. Andrea?
Well, Carlos, I think the answer of these questions you asked us the answers are different in countries like wealthy, developed countries like United States or in Europe, and a country like us. I don't see a problem in auto-citation, but in a country like us, you find auto-citation because our community work with few authors, and one of the authors is the owner of the subject. The subject in Brazil is mine. how can you do not see, put a citation of me? So we are small, and some practice in our academia are very old-fashioned, to say the least. So what I ask them is, do you know other reference? Do you know other perspectives? Even if, of course, if I teach organizational behavior, I will use with my students the reference I know more, but not only those reference. They have the right to know the reference that I do not influenced me as much. But the problem I see is that we auto-citation is the consequence that I put only these authors are good in this subject, and we must fight this. Although I respect, we teach our students with the authors we know more or we are involved, we must teach our students more than the authors that influenced us. I don't know if I want you to tell me, what you think about association. Tell me.
Myself?
Yes,
Myself.
you. I'm asking you.
Yeah,
what do you think about association?
I think I agree with you. I think self-citation sometimes is inevitable, but I think we need to reduce this to the least portion we can, because sometimes only yourself has written about that subject, but this is very difficult to understand that in a world in which information travels in speed light, to see that nobody knows what is happening about that. So I guess some persons can self-citation themselves. You know, in our case, it's difficult to see that Paul Sabatier cannot, when you are alive, you were not able to cite them himself. You can see other persons, other very important, you know, if you speak about new public management, Christopher Hood will not quote himself in that subject. But we must keep this to the least portion we can. Okay.
Ricardo, you mentioned sort of the example of Christopher Hood and new public management. Of course, if you introduce something about new public management, you should refer to, because he's the sort of the seminal author. But that doesn't mean that there are not any other authors particularly about new public management, but also about other topics. I think it's actually, I think it's presumptuous of some scholars to think that they are the only ones who've been writing about a particular topic. I would always bet that there are always other authors, and there are nowadays so many good strategies to find this other literature that, you know, it should not be that difficult to find these other sources and to refer to them. Yeah, like Andrea says. Yeah.
Yeah, I was mentioning Christopher Hood because, you know, in my doctoral defense in 2003, Richard Kirley, you know very well, was in my defense, and I have forgotten to put Christopher Hood in my dissertation, in my doctoral thesis. And Richard Kirley told me, you just have forgotten the only guy you couldn't forget about to put in your thesis, because he's very important in new public management, but he's also Scottish, as I am. I say, oh, sorry about that. But talking about ethics, some journals are starting to ask the authors to put, you know, if you have two or three authors, the amount of work each author have placed in that particular article. How do you think about that? You know, I have papers which I wrote with Claudia, and we work together, very, very close together, but sometimes you see that some professor, you know, obligate students to write the article and put their names on the paper. We know that this might happen. What do you think about that? This will be a new world in which ethics will be an issue for each and every journal.
Mm-hmm. I think that, yeah, I think we all know those examples, but yes, it does happen. And I think that as we are moving towards a culture in which we more often are publishing in teams rather than individually, the chances of people getting on board is, of course, larger than it used to be. I think that there are a couple of trends going on regarding ethics that public administration has just sort of got on board. We are not that far developed in that sense as it is happening in other disciplines. So the example that was already given by Andrea about mentioning who the reviewers are and showing of the reviews. There are calls out for pre-registration and mentioning that, getting ethical approval, even if you're doing voluntary interviews or voluntary questionnaires, mentioning of the role of the different co-authors of a paper. You know, all these things are going on, coming towards us, but we have not incorporated them yet in our discipline and in our journals. But it might happen in the near future. And I don't have an exact answer yet. I don't think that my journal and my publisher are sort of leading the revolution in this way. Maybe the bigger journals like JPART and PAR, for example, would probably adopt those kinds of practices sooner than my journal. But I don't know about local government studies, Claudia?
No, we are not requesting that yet. Fortunately, no. I don't know. I didn't know about that trend, Ricardo, to be honest. But probably that would be wise. And the point is that it has to be signed by all the authors, because otherwise the person who is admitting the article would be the one entering that information, and the others might not know that. Does it make sense? So probably the requirement should be a statement signed by the number of authors. In that way, the author, the co-authors, they know what they are submitting. Because otherwise, who submits is the one who knows what is the information that is going to be entered.
Okay. Andrea, anything to add?
No, I fully agree. I think we all facing these points. But what I think is, this is not about I work at 30%, you work at 70%. It's not only that. It's to avoid practice like I wrote 0% and you put my name. Because in the past, even in health sciences, I went for the funds. The lab is mine, the research is mine, all the background of this research is mine, and now I have a student. So the student does a research, and of course, I will be in the paper. Even this are changing. No matter if the lab is yours, and it is your line, it's your work, but did you work in this paper? So there's Cielo has several papers about this. An article, the authors are those who really contribute in the paper. And I think this is correct. This is correct. But we are changing.
Yeah. I can't see any question over here. You know, I don't know if I'm doing the right thing. That's as long as the question came, I was addressing to you. Most of those questions were not mine, it was from the audience. But
I want to do a question to Ricardo.
You can do a question to yourselves now
no,
as well.
To you.
To me.
Why
okay.
don't you send me your best paper?
But that is
Very
a
good
good
public.
they are asking you for a
In
paper,
public.
Ricardo.
I invite Claudia and Sandra to help me building good science. We face different challenges, more hard. You can imagine now we are facing challenges to prove that science is important.
Mm-hmm.
So please help me. Help me.
Yes, yes. I will do
Ricardo
that.
doesn't help me, but you, I'm help.
Yeah. But I have some papers on my pipeline. I will dedicate
want the
one or
best.
two of them for you.
The best.
Okay.
The
Okay.
best.
The best.
The first
Okay.
is for me.
Okay.
Not the last. The first.
Okay.
Okay.
The one I used panel data using mid-level regression analysis with two dependent variables and 15 independent variables and 20 control variables. I will send this to you. Okay.
I will provide you the best reviewer you can ever have in the world.
Yeah.
Tell me.
That's a very good point you made. Reviewers is you both mentioned the problem with reviewers. Sometimes you receive some reviews that say, did this person already read the paper?
Yes, that's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
I was the director of the Public Administration Division of our Academy of Brazilian Academy of Management, and we call here AMPAD, but this is similar to it's an academia. And I was asking doctoral students to review the papers because the people who was reviewing the articles for the conference was terrible. They didn't do the work. They answered the review with just one statement, one statement. And when doctoral students was doing a much better job. What's your experience on that?
Yeah, well, I have, my experience is the same. So junior researchers usually do a much better job, much more thorough, much more precise. They are much more critical. So I always try to sort of get a mixture. And if I can call on, if you get an invitation to do a review and you are very busy and you really don't have time to do it, help the editors by giving names of other people who could be good reviewers. Perfect. And then also think of your postdoctoral students, your PhD students, just give them the opportunity to do a review. Perhaps you can sort of look along and see how they are doing it to make sure that they learn the craftsmanship that goes into it. And that way you help younger people, you help the editors, and you also help the authors of the articles that have been reviewed. And I think that's a strategy that I use now more and more because it is so difficult to get reviewers. I just send a message to a particular person that I know who's very busy, and I say, I don't want to bother you with doing the review, but can you help me find good reviewers? And that's a really good strategy. And I think it also echoes Andrea's call for getting better science, for getting more people, getting the quality of science more sort of on a higher level. This is one of the ways that you can also do it in finding the reviewers in all levels of the universities to do the reviews.
Yeah, my experience is I start learning about my own work when I start criticizing other people's work. They say what people is doing wrong and say, oh, I am also doing this wrong.
Well, I believe that's true. I think that's true. Yeah. I believe it's one of the perks of being an editor is that you learn an enormous amount about, writing good publications and about writing good reviews and about sort of, sometimes I'm actually surprised that sort of the top researchers can deliver such crap reviews, sort of, sorry for my language. Yeah, because they hardly take the time to read it because probably because they are so busy, sometimes because they think they're very important. I'm sorry, this is being recorded, right? I shouldn't probably not say these things.
That's
but
okay.
In all honesty, I think that yeah, it's very important for junior researchers to learn this as well, to become, better at it. And having a position in a journal, in an editorial team, is also a very educational thing, also for junior researchers.
Yes, yeah, I agree. I couldn't agree more. Claudia, your thoughts?
No, I agree with my colleagues about the importance of reviewers, and I highly emphasize what Sandra and Andrea says about the role of new and tenured scholars. They are very thoughtful. Unfortunately, we should not request too much from them because they should be working instead of being reviewing, but unfortunately that is the case. And actually I have found that, for example, graduate students or PhD students in their last year, actually they have asked me, Claudia, could you send me an article for me to review, because they have found out that this is a good learning process for them. And they are very thoughtful, and because they have all these knowledges recently acquired, they are very detailed about things. So I guess that this is a normal process that goes through all our careers. And I had a colleague, actually, they usually say also the best teachers tends to be instructors, tends to be the tenured faculty member, because they are in the process of learning how to teach. And but we should remind ourselves the importance of being cooperative. We have to review in order for other people to review our pieces. And sometimes we forget about it. And believe me, recently I haven't had issues because I submit, I request articles to be reviewed by 3 colleagues, and the 3 of them say, no, I am unavailable. And anyway, and I know that it has been probably more than 2 years they have not been asked to review an article from us because we have that record. So it's difficult to encourage them to be more cooperative in that aspect.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
My personal record is to ask 27 people to get 2 to say yes to review it.
Yes.
That's how bad it is.
That. Yes.
Wow,
yeah, that's how bad it is. Yeah. Yeah.
Imagine
that's one of the worst examples. But I usually have to ask about 10 to 12 people to get 2 to agree.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I should not complain. Yeah.
Another question that just came up here, it's, we are academics, we have a very large ego. So how do you deal with people on writing rejection letters? You say, I'm very sorry, your work is wonderful, but was not that time. Do you receive some bad language letters back from these rejected authors?
On occasion, authors, well, of course, and I understand completely, because it's very disappointing, and people can take it quite personally. I seldom, I don't recant. So once I've taken a decision, that's it, and you have to deal with it. So you will get a very kind, diplomatic reply saying that, this is the decision that I've made, and good luck with the manuscript finding a place somewhere else to get it published. It's all in the game, and as long as we follow the right procedure for doing the revisions and so on, then that's how it is. It doesn't happen that often, but it does happen. And I always tell my own PhD students, when they are submitting their work, I tell them, if you get reviews, read them, put them away for a couple of days until your temper has cooled down and your disappointment and your tears and so on are past. I have to do the same, by the way. It's not, doesn't have anything to do with age. It's just, you take it quite seriously, obviously, and then reread it, because most of the times what reviewers notice, if they say, for example, that you've explained something very poorly, and you disagree because you tend to think, they didn't read it. Sometimes maybe you did not explain it quite so clearly as you may think that you've done it. So it's always good to take the comments very seriously, but there is a very tricky balance. And I remember that Bruno Frey, he's a sociologist in Switzerland, he once wrote an article called Publication or Prostitution, which is about to which degree will you amend your original article in order to be able to get it published. So do you sell your soul to the devil or not? And that is something that I do struggle with. So on occasion, I will, for example, I will always read the reviews and give some hints to the author about what to do with some of the comments. But on occasion, I will tell the author, I think you can discard these and these comments because, I wouldn't necessarily agree with them. But please pay attention to these and these points, for example. So I try to help the author in finding their way, because sometimes you get these really conflicting reviews as well. And it's very difficult because as an author, you can't do both at the same time. So then I try to help the author in sort of navigating through all these comments and as a way to deal with it.
Claudia?
Actually, I have seen one case, and in one meeting with my colleagues, the other editors, I asked about whether male editors were less likely to receive responses from people who have been rejected. And actually, they say that they had never received any mail from the authors that they had been rejected. And but I have received so far 2, but they were very polite and they were just asking for more explanations about the rationale for rejecting the article. But in general, they tend to be quite friendly. But I have heard from other colleagues in other journals that some the big names, and usually they tended to overreact when they get rejected. And but I always say, well, this is a learning process, and that's why the rejection email needs to be framed in a very polite manner, yes, and in that way it doesn't come across to the authors, because we have to put in their shoes. The same happens to me when I get a rejection. I just dislike it, but 2 days later, again, I read the mail and I said, I think that they have reasons for doing that.
Yeah. Andrea, what is your experience over here in Brazil, which everybody knows who you are?
My experience is that I move on. Yes, I have some enemies and I love them. No problem. I know. There are no queen friends. Just one line, everybody in the same line, founding mothers, founding fathers, new authors, students, no matter, one line, double blind review, third blind review if needed, community, learning community. I'm sorry, I regret, rejected, but you must be. With all politeness, reject. Why? I never send, we have the reviewers and my letter. Okay, in my letter, I assume the points that I consider, even if the reviewers did it first. But I write my letter explaining the points. So, just be it. That's why I'm editor-in-chief. But I must apologize. I have to go. My cat is here and I must go to the airport. Sandra and Claudia, please help me. Please send me your papers, your student papers. Please help me make science in a country that we must fight for science. Fight for democracy. Please help us.
How much time does it take to get us a decision?
Well, I'm trying, desk review in 30 days. Desk review in 30 days. And we are approximate, the decision depends on 120, 20 days, 150. Some issues are harder because we have less reviewers, but you can help me if you provide me with more reviewers. And in the special issues, when professors bring me their reviewers, we enlarge the number of reviewers, we can be even less days for the review.
Okay.
But
thank you
please, I invite you to know more about us and to help us for a better scientific community. We are in a different stage. Me and Ricardo, we are fighting for people to understand there is a possibility in science. It's different from you. You live in countries where science is established. We do not. We must, in our classes, we must start our classes by saying, you must take vaccine. The earth is not planned. So please help us.
Thank
Ricardo,
you so much, Andrea. Have a safe place.
Thank you very much. I'm very pleased to see you again. You know you are very important for us. You are a very good friend for us. Please don't forget me. Okay, but I have to go. Thank you very much, Dulce.
Okay.
You are wonderful. I hope one day I'll be like you. Okay?
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Ana querida, muito obrigada. Régia, você é perfeita. Quando eu crescer, vou ser igual a você. Obrigada. I must go.
I guess we have 2 more minutes. And so, Claudia and Sandra, you can do your make-up propaganda. And thank you very much for coming over to dedicating this time for us. You know, Sandra, you could be resting at home and you are with us. Thank you so much. You don't know how much this represents for our community. Okay, thank you guys.
No, Ricardo, thanks to you actually for inviting the just women to this panel. That was quite exciting. And thank you for all the support that you and your country and your cohorts actually offered to all of us. Thanks to you, we are in all these positions because in one way or another, you tried to highlight our work. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Well, thanks from me too, Ricardo, for this opportunity. And also maybe to help me to further improve the international nature of the International Journal of Public Sector Management. So thanks a lot. And you can see my clock over here.
Yeah.
Almost 10 o'clock.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Thank you so much.
Excuse me. Bye-bye.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank
Bye-bye.
Pleasure to
Bye-bye.
meet you, Sandra.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.